Hey, it's Adrian. Just before we get you to this episode, do me a favor and head over to pageantlaunch.com. We are starting the world's first dedicated pageant review site to make the pageant industry safe, transparent, and fair. Three things that I know it is most of the time, but it's not like that all of the time. So head over to pageantlaunch.com, enter your email address, it's completely free, and let's get you to this episode. Okay, Eileen, can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't want to do anything now. I don't want to tempt fate. Guys, if you're watching this again, just ignore what happened last time. Okay. I think I'm going to cry. Long story short, we're running. Anyway, let's just get into it. My special guest for today is Eileen O'Donnell, who is Miss Earth Island. Eileen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm not quite sure if you're happy to have me at this stage because you've had me on the show for quite a long time already. But we'll get going.
We'll get going. Eileen, we might as well start with the obvious. Can you just explain your issues with tech? Can you identify, like, how far back did they start? Have you always been like you said you were the blight. Have you always had that ability, let's call it a talent, Miss Earth has a talent section, to go to a computer and just make it stop working just by standing there? Has this been a long-standing skill for yourself?
Yeah, I think I'm actually that good at it that I can even make your computer stop working as well. So that's how far down the road I am with it.
Has it been like lifelong, just you don't deal with tech well?
Yes, it's just do you know what? I think we've spent so much time tonight actually trying to get this to work that I feel like if I say the wrong thing, the connection will just drop off again.
It may actually, and it dropped off before. So again, if I drop off, just remember you're on by yourself. So just keep talking. But I mean, obviously you're in Miss Earth. You're representing Ireland, which is amazing, and Miss Earth is being held virtually. So we might as well get into Miss Earth straight away. Have you found the virtual part of it a challenge, given that maybe tech is not your strong suit?
So thankfully, the Miss Earth organisation have been amazing with organising the whole pageant virtually. Obviously, this is very new to everyone. So I thought at the beginning that if it's new to everyone, that would be a good thing and we would all be in the same boat, so to say. But I think that I've had a bit more technical difficulties than most people. Throughout the competition, it's been phenomenal. We have like group chats and we have secretaries for like each continent, and they have been great. We also go on to the calls earlier, like me and you have also done, just to have a brief and stuff and things. There's been a few technical issues, but for the majority, it has been great. I'm sure you're aware there was a typhoon in Philippines, and that actually postponed one of our events. But apart from that, and thankfully everyone was okay. Apart from that, and fingers crossed, it will all go ahead and be great going forward. Thank God I don't have any input in I just have to actually log on, and normally it works okay, but tonight was another story.
So can you give people, because a lot of people watching this would have competed in a pageant, but it would have been a pre-pandemic pageant, so obviously in person, the usual stuff. How has it for you been different? Like what's been involved with a virtual pageant? Because I've seen from Miss Earth, there's, for example, I told you just before we went live, I was part of the press sort of gathering a couple of days ago, yesterday, I don't even remember. And then I've seen a lot of content, like you guys have produced a lot of videos, for example, and they keep releasing them. So how involved has it been? What's been involved from your side to actually participate in the pageant?
So I think that a lot of the delegates were actually elected earlier in the year and most of them have had quite some time to get to grips with the fact that the pageant will be virtual because of the pandemic. I was only elected on the 17th of October, so it has been non-stop ever since. And as you know, I'm not very good with technology, so the thought was a bit daunting at the beginning. And like any international pageant, I'm sure a lot of the girls will know that are watching. Normally, if you're elected to compete internationally, you'll get like a ton of emails and a ton of information that you have time to go through. Whereas for me, because I actually was elected right when the competition was starting, they were actually doing the meet and greet that day. So that's obviously why I wasn't on the meet and greet. So I had a lot of information to take in and a lot of things to get in place pretty quickly. But it was one of those opportunities where I could have turned it down and not took the opportunity because there was so much work, or I could do what I've done and grabbed it with both hands and done the best that I possibly can. And that's what I feel like I am doing right now. I think in total there was around 16 videos that we had to record, pre-recorded for the pre-pageant events and the final. And obviously during a pandemic, that's quite difficult. So we just had to, I had obviously a great team around me. We've been in and out of different lockdowns, so it's doing stuff by myself when we're in lockdown, and when we're not in lockdown, I was able to get help, and it's just been a whirlwind. But one of those experiences that I will hold with me forever, and hopefully will be able to look back on and think was a phenomenal experience. Right now, things are going so quickly that it's hard to take it all in, but I love when you can just look back on an experience and just really see it for what it was then.
Was there any particular reason that you decided, because you, as you mentioned, you sort of got the call at the last minute with just like, well, I mean, you got the call mid-October, it's only mid-November now. Was there any reason that you decided to particularly take this challenge on rather than maybe passing over it until next year or another pageant? Like, obviously, it's Miss Earth, but the advocacy is environmental. Was that part of your decision, part of the reason for your decision to actually jump on with both hands?
Yes, definitely. I think during the pandemic, just as I mentioned, it would have been the easiest option to say no. This opportunity, it's not the right time. But I think it was one of those things where you have two paths and you have to decide either you're going to go down the path or you can give the opportunity to someone else. That's even if someone else would have taken it at this stage. But I feel like I'm a strong believer in everything happens for a reason. I feel like it was a great time for me that this opportunity came up. We're going through a pandemic, so what better time to be able to promote environmental awareness? And
Mm.
I think just in general, everyone needs some kind of uplifting and positivity at the moment. So it was great not only for me and my mental health, but again for everyone watching at home. And I feel like Miss Earth have really paved the way for the virtual competition. As I had mentioned, it has run so well, and the
Mm.
whole Miss Earth organisation should be so proud of it. And although at some stage we will go back to pageants being in person, which we'll all love, I feel like the element of online pageantry won't just go away. I feel like we will use the platform
Yeah.
more now, and that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I don't think it's just pageantry. I think during the pandemic, there's a lot of industries that have realized they can do a lot of stuff virtually. And environmentally, for one thing, because if there's less travel, then there's less impact on the environment. Now, with Miss Earth, obviously the advocacy that you have is a very strong component of it. So, can you tell the audience what your advocacy is and what led you to choose that particular advocacy?
Yeah, of course. So for me, I'll start off by my actual advocacy, which focuses on waste. And I've come up with an acronym for the word waste based on the competition being Miss Earth. And the acronym
Hmm.
for the word waste is We All Should Treasure Earth, which I feel
Nice.
is a great play on the word because it's nice and lighthearted and it's something easy to remember. Now, don't get me wrong, there was a few options. There was a lot of brainstorming went on to come up with that. It wasn't just out of the blue. But we'll not go
Sure.
into that. That was definitely the best one. Um, but as I say, I decided to focus on waste because, especially because of the pandemic, there is, I feel like the only the sorry, not the only way. I feel like right now, because of the pandemic, we are producing more waste because, as you say, although we are working from home, well, a lot of people are working from home, and we
Mm.
are not traveling as much. We are possibly buying more. Now, for me, I've definitely not been shopping online. It's just not something that I've been doing at the moment. I work in a mental health facility, so I'm still actually going out to work, and things have been crazy. So for me, it hasn't been about
Mm.
shopping online, but I know for a lot of people it is, and
Yeah.
it's the only thing that
Yeah.
they're finding is bringing them enjoyment and so on and so forth. But in general, waste produces 2.01 billion tons annually. And the world produces, sorry, and there, over 33% of that is not managed in an environmentally safe manner. And we need to start looking at why that is. And with plastics, especially single use plastics, less than 10% of those are actually um, reusable and actually
Mm.
recycled. Do you know, we're using single use plastics over 90% of them. And we need to look at alternatives and what we can use instead. So again, that one of the main reasons is because we do produce so much waste, and I think that we need to look at that. Ireland, especially, I had mentioned in some of my Miss Earth chats that during times of economic growth and recession, we are having issues with littering and fly tipping. It's not down to one thing, and it's something that we need to look at, especially because Ireland is estimated to grow. We also have a lot of tourists. We
Mhm.
actually have like over double the amount of tourists come to Ireland compared to our actual residents. So we need to
Oh wow.
be thinking for the future, and I think that it's just important that we focus on waste right now. Again, there's a lot of different options that I could have chose, but I've always been interested in recycling and waste management. So for me, it was definitely a good option to advocate for that.
I find it hard. I don't know if you find the same thing, but I think that the figure you mentioned of 2 billion tons to me, I just can't quite
Mm-hmm.
conceive because at a certain point, you hear 1 ton, you think that's a lot. 2 tons is a lot, but then just trying to picture what 2 billion tons of waste would look like, I can't quite imagine. Obviously, it's a huge amount. In
And of
terms of
course, of
Ireland, yeah, you go.
sorry, I was going to say, and of course, that's annually. So we really need
Mm,
to focus on that right now.
yeah. Uh, in terms of Ireland and the environment specifically, how do you feel in general that Ireland is doing compared to the rest of the world? And I say this, I mean, Australia adopted recycling, for example, pretty early on, but in terms of reducing carbon emissions, for example, we're probably further behind than we should be. Same you could say for America. But in terms of Ireland, do you feel that Ireland is sort of a leader in terms of environment and being green, or is there a bit of catch up to do, or is it somewhere in the middle?
Okay, so last year we actually recycled more than we've ever recycled. So I do feel like we are on the right path. I would love, and my hopes for Ireland is that we would be able to lead the way with recycling efforts and waste management within Europe. And I do think that even locally right now that is happening. For example, I've actually just got a few things here to show you. So this was sent to me. I don't know if you can see it there. This was actually dropped in my letterbox recently, and it's just an indoor recyclable bag, and it was sent out from the council. So they are putting projects in place that are helping the local community, and I feel that it's not that we only need the support of the council, but I feel like when there's people that are ignorant towards recycling and waste management, that if the council are putting investment into this and backing the ideas, that it will help people that don't actually know enough about it. As I had mentioned earlier, there is definitely people that would want to do more, but are just ignorant to it. They're not in a position where they know enough information about it, and I don't think that that's anyone's particular fault. You know, I don't think it's the actual individual people of society. I don't think it's their fault, but I think that if we know, if I've learned anything from this experience, is that we need to do as much as we can and help educate and raise awareness to anyone and everyone that we can, whether that's young children or adults.
Is the again here in Australia, I know that the kids learn a lot about recycling. In school, for example, they might even take on environmental projects. They might grow a garden. They certainly are taught about what recycling is and that it's a good thing. And we have, I mean, actually right now the garbage bin is collecting our recycling bins. So we have one smaller bin for the non-recyclable waste, then a separate one for paper and cardboard, a separate one for kind of the plastics and glass, and then another separate one for green, like leaves and trees and compost and things like that. Do you feel that the education system in Ireland, because you mentioned that not enough people know about recycling, do you feel that the education system is doing enough to educate the younger generation coming up in terms of how important all the recycling is?
Well, I can take from the experience of when I was at school, there was definitely a focus on it. And I wouldn't be completely sure with the youngest generation now how much that has increased. It is something I would definitely like to look into to find out more about. But I think that it also starts at home. And if as adults we're educated, then regardless of the school systems actually teaching, then we can at home. And that doesn't have to just be a parent. It can be a guardian or an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, a friend. But yeah, as I had said, definitely the schools should be educating the pupils, and I think there needs to be more emphasis on that, because we have so many classes throughout school and growing up, and I know when I was at school we learned a lot about what skills and qualities you needed to go into everyday life and your career. But if even one of those classes could be replaced with environmental awareness and different topics and inclusion of the children coming up with ideas and projects and stuff that they can do, and maybe give the spotlight to different children, because we all have our own ideas and we can all come up with new initiatives. And I think that if they're given that opportunity, they will really thrive. And like, the children are the future. they are the ones that's going to be here when we're gone. So I think it's important that it's not just the adults making the decisions, that the
Yeah.
younger generation can come up with their own ideas too.
Yeah. As I said, I was on the Miss Earth press conference a day or so ago. As I said, I can't remember when it was, but one of the press members did ask about projects that children could do, and a few of the delegates pointed out that children often are much more creative when it comes to those sorts of projects and come up with different ideas than us grown-ups do. But, for most of them, they love it. So educating them is certainly going to be important. Eileen, I'm sure you've talked a lot about Miss Earth over the last month or so, so let me just switch for a second. You mentioned your career. You work in mental health, and mental health in 2020 has taken a huge, huge hit. Can you just tell us a little bit more about your career and what made you choose that career?
Yeah, of course. So when I was at university, I actually studied business with accounting. And at the time when I was completing my degree, I was always very much interested in nursing. Nursing was something that I had always wanted to do, but again, trusting in the timing of your life and everything happens for a reason. I think that at that time I decided to consider for another degree. I feel like it was really important for me to complete the Bachelor of Science in Business with Accounting because it's got me to where I am today, and the company that I work with, I actually got on through that avenue and then have been able to branch out to where I am now. So as I mentioned, I work in a mental health facility, and I don't know if you know this, but I've mentioned on some of the Miss Earth chats that I am interested in going back to university, hopefully next year, to study nursing, because as I mentioned, it has always been a passion for me. Mental health is such a huge topic now that wasn't really talked about when I was younger. There was pieces of information here and there, but it was nowhere near talked about the way it is now. And I think that is only a good thing. Where I live, we have a mental health crisis, and I think it's something that needs attention, needs funding, and something that we should work on. So I want to go back to university to do nursing and hopefully study. There's two types of nursing in the university that's in my town, so you can do general or mental health. So I'm still deciding exactly which one to do, because if you do general, you can branch out into mental health at a later stage, whereas if you start off with mental health, it's a bit more difficult to go the other way.
Right.
So I work there as a secretary at the moment. I am not I don't deal with the residents like in that sort of way, but I think it's definitely something that has opened my eyes into the future career that I want. And that's something that I would encourage people to do if you are in a career and you have a hunger in you for something that is like a calling, or you feel like it's a purpose to you, it's what your purpose is, then go for it. It's never too late. That's what I would say.
I believe you're from Derry. Is that correct?
Yes. I'm actually
Yeah.
friends with Chloe, who will be the co-host.
Yeah. And I mentioned that because probably more than a few people watching know Derry Girls, and Derry Girls is a comedy. It's very lighthearted. But speaking to Chloe, she was mentioning, and you mentioned this as well, the mental health crisis that Derry for some reason is going through. And I think she mentioned, was it the Foyle? There's a river or something, and there's an
Yeah.
organization that's purpose literally is, it's boggled my mind, to retrieve the bodies of people who had jumped off the bridge. And Nadia Sayers, who's competing in Miss Universe Ireland, just put up a post the other day about a young man who had jumped off a bridge and killed himself. And when I say young man, it really was a boy. He looked all of 18. Can you just,
Mm-hmm.
is there any indication as to why that there's such a mental health crisis, particularly in Ireland and specifically Derry?
I think that is the question that everyone wants answered. It is something that definitely needs attention now, and for many years, people have been campaigning for more facilities here. It's something that I hope we get in place. Don't get me wrong, we have facilities that are in place at the moment, but they're not funded appropriately, and there's not enough emphasis on the hard work that they do for the people of the city. So it's a difficult question. I don't think there's any one specific thing. There's a lot of different issues that people obviously can go through, and we all experience issues with mental health, but I don't know if it's I don't know if we could really drill down to one thing.
Yeah, I think that that's fair enough. I mean, mental health is a complicated issue at the best of times. It's just when I saw I mean, a lot of the world is struggling with mental health, particularly in 2020. But just to know that it's so bad that there's an actual organization whose job is not to save people but to recover the bodies, that was pretty jarring, even for me, as I've worked in mental health, and to hear that, that was like, wow, that's not a good thing. Eileen, just to change topics for a bit, something a bit more lighthearted. What do you what do you do for fun or to relax? I don't know if you've had much spare time over the last month or so, but if you have spare time, what do you like to do during it? And hopefully it has nothing to do with computers or tech. I'm going to imagine it's got nothing to do with it. But what do you do in your spare time?
So right now you are correct. I have not had any spare time. But what I do like to do is my online stuff. So throughout kind of the word of, I don't want to say influencing, because that's definitely not what I would say that I do. I kind of just be me online, if that makes sense. I just do my own thing and let people follow my journey. It includes the likes of pageants, Miss Earth. It includes skincare, fashion, just lifestyle in general. So I like doing that. I also think it's so important to include charity work in that. Now, I know that can be a touchy subject, and some people may be thinking, why does that need to be something that's put online? But I think that it's so important that we show all the aspects of what we do. And I really enjoy the work that I do. And for instance, I have another thing to show you. So one of the charities I've been working with for the past few years, and I have it on my Instagram, is the Tree of Remembrance. Now, this week they actually started their own Instagram page, which I thought was great because they were never on Instagram before. Yeah. But I've been working with them for a few years, and what the Tree of Remembrance is it's located in Derry, and it's a tree that is put up in the local town around Christmas time, around the month of December. Now, I'm hoping that there will be something this year. I'm not quite sure how they're going to do it, but I know they'll manage something. So what happens is people can attend the Tree of Remembrance, write on yellow ribbons for a loved one who has passed away, and they place that on the tree. And there be thousands of yellow ribbons come Christmas Eve. And then what they do is they take all the yellow ribbons and they complete a mass to remember all of the people that can no longer be with us. And I just think it's one of the most heartwarming and rewarding things to be part of. And I'm so glad that I'm part of it. And I think, why not share that with everyone? It's not for anyone to praise that it's something that's done. It's to raise awareness that is something that goes on in the city. And a lot of people actually had mentioned to me after that they had passed the tree so many times and they had seen the yellow ribbons and they thought that it was just decorations and they weren't actually sure what it was until it was pointed out to them through online. Now, obviously, it's not just me. There's a lot of people do it, but it's not just there, obviously, for the yellow ribbons to be placed on. There is a purpose to it. And you can make a donation, or you don't have to make a donation, but you can make a donation when you're there for different charities. And the charities are like local charities. And one of them is actually called the Foyle Food Bank. And I've just printed this out because this is something that I'm going to do this year, which I think is brilliant. And another thing I'll share online just to raise more awareness, because a lot of these charities don't have enough funding to get the information out there. And what this particular project is, it's called a reverse advent calendar. So basically what you do is every day for 24 days, you would put a different item into like a box, and then it would be given to a family or someone in need of these food items. And that's just obviously one thing that takes place in December. But the Tree of Remembrance actually raises money for a number of different charities, the Foyle Hospice and the Foyle Food Bank and Aware NI. So it's definitely something that around this time of year, because this time of year can be difficult for everyone, but especially these charities that need the help and need the funding. This funding can keep them going for months on end. So it's really important. So just to take it back to the reasoning behind that, because I feel like the platform I have is something that I should be using for the good, and that's just something that I take part in. And I just, as I said, it's so heartwarming to do something like that and to be able to share that with people. And obviously, I'm one of the lucky ones that can do that, because there's other people who maybe don't have the platform. So I feel like I have to use it for the greater good and show the things that I take part in. So
Can you just,
that is kind of what I like to do in my spare time. I know I kind of went off and to that, but again, it's something that I'm quite passionate about, because it's just such a nice thing to be a part of, and hopefully people watching this might take up the idea or check them out as well.
Yeah, I love the idea of the reverse advent calendar, and food banks and over Christmas and that sort of thing. It's very heartwarming. Just for people, we'll start to move towards a close, Eileen. Also because I don't know how long your battery is going to last, and given how today has gone, it'll probably not last much longer. But can you just give people an idea as to, we talked about dairy, and dairy in particular, can you just describe it for someone who has never been there and probably never been to Ireland as well? Can you just describe what dairy is like?
Firstly, I love the way you say it. I always think people who don't live here say it differently to the way we say it. I don't know why. It's like, I don't know. It's just nice the way you say it. But
Okay.
what I would say is Derry and Ireland in general, I think we are people who are full of I want to say gratitude, but I think I'm not exactly sure what's the best way to put this. I feel like we are so grateful in the sense that we will take anybody at face value, and we will welcome anyone here. We welcome people into our home as if we've known them our whole lives. Now, I know some people will think that that's crazy and scary, but that's just not the way things are here. Do you know, we want to see people succeed. We want to see people do well. And I think it's important that people know that about us. They know that about Ireland, and they come and visit us. They see exactly what it's like. Do you know, we have beautiful people with beautiful scenery, and you will feel at home here. So even if it's just a short trip, it'll be an experience that you'll enjoy forever. And you will also help with ecotourism if you come here. So that will be great for us. And we will return the favour. So put Ireland on your bucket list.
It's not really the bucket list, hopefully, at least for me anyway. It's sooner than the bucket list. I don't want to wait till I'm dying. I have something terminal to go to Ireland. I will just quickly say I didn't have much experience with Irish culture. I've certainly never been to Ireland. I think I've flown over it on transit to somewhere else. But last year for St. Patrick's Day, I have a good Irish friend, and I went to a large Patrick's Day event here in Sydney. And I don't know if you know, but there's a massive, massive Irish community in Sydney, and there was free flowing Guinness. Let's just put that out there. And there was a lot of singing, a lot of clapping, and we were all standing up for something. I can't remember what it was. I think someone was giving a performance, and then there was a large Irish man behind me who grabbed my hand and forced me to start, clapping and cheering. And then when I put my hands down, he grabbed my arms again and said, "You have to keep going. You have to keep going." I did, but I felt completely safe. It's a thing. I describe Irish people as being aggressively friendly. I don't know if that quite, if you know what I mean by that, but they will make sure, like, you have to be having a good time. They won't let you
Yeah.
not have a good time. So
I think that's why it's so
interesting.
difficult. I think that's why it's so difficult to describe us, because I feel like being Irish is more of a feeling than a description. And
Yeah,
if you're Irish, I think you just it's just within you.
yeah. I think that's actually that's correct. It's more, sometimes you have words in languages that you don't actually have in other languages. I think it's Finnish or Danish have this word that's, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but it's spelled Hygge, and apparently means like the feeling you get when you're with good friends around the fire. And there's no word for that in English. So maybe there is a word for the Irish feeling in another language, just not in English. Um, but Eileen, just before we get to the final 10 questions, shout outs. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to or say thank you to for supporting you along your journey, pageantry and otherwise?
Yeah, of course. Firstly, I would like to say thank you to you, Adrian, for inviting me onto the show. It's been an experience, to say the least. But hopefully, if I ever come back on the show or am invited back on, it will run a lot smoother. I would also like to say thank you to the Miss Earth organisation and the whole team for their dedication and hard work behind the virtual pageant. I would like to say thanks to the team that I've had here, which includes Blush and Glow makeup, Sass and Halo, which made my crown for my national costume, and a big thank you to Ghost Productions, who helped me with my video footage. I'd also like to say thanks to my coach, Romeo, who has been a great help throughout the Miss Earth pageant, and all of the fans of the whole Miss Earth organisation, not just for supporting me, but for supporting the other Eco Angels and the Beauty for a Cause and the whole environmental awareness revolution, should we say. So I'd just like to say a big thank you to all of the Miss Earth organisation fans and team.
Let's see if we can get fancy for a second. I know you're on your phone, but can you just describe this for us? This is obviously yourself. Can you describe the significance and what went into creating the costume?
Of course. So the background behind the national costume actually come from the traditional Irish hymn Lady of Knock, and specifically the line Golden Rose, Queen of Ireland. So I'm not sure if you can see from the photograph, but there's actually golden roses and leaves to represent the earth in the crown. And this was basically a tribute to my grandmother, who passed away in June, because her favourite song was Lady of Knock. And
Mm.
I took inspiration from that. She was also one of the main reasons why I took this opportunity, because with her passing, it let me see that life's too short. We need to take all the opportunities that we can get. So I feel like this is a dedication to her, and it's something that I'll always be proud of. As you can see from the suit as well, it has roses on it, and the earrings, which you can't see from the photograph, are gold circle earrings, and they are to represent that we must have continuous efforts for environmental awareness and being accountable for our actions and raising awareness on waste management.
I love that there's so much thought that's gone into it, but because you can't get the story just by looking at it, obviously. So that's an amazing costume. How long did it take to come together? I mean, you only got into the pageant, like as you said, middle October, so this must have been done quite quickly.
It was done super quick, and I think the great thing for me was that I actually sung Lady of Knock as my talent in the Miss Earth organisation, and that's where I got the inspiration from my grandmother. And it just all tied together. For me, it was just something that I didn't even have to think about. When I thought about the national costume, it didn't come to mind to do a traditional costume. I wanted to incorporate Golden Rose, Queen of Ireland, because I thought it was just so significant, and I thought it was a great idea. And you are right, people do need to know the story behind it to understand it. And I hope that by explaining that, people can see the reason why I've decided to go with this costume.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really stands out. Okay, well, I'll remove that for just a second. Eileen, let's go towards a close. So I always wrap up my interviews with the same 10 questions. It's not a speed round. You can take as long as you want. You can do them as quickly as you want. And you
10
don't need to
questions?
explain your answers unless you want to. Yep, 10 questions. All right. And they're random questions as well. They're probably not very pageant-esque questions, so have a bit of fun. First question,
Okay.
what is your favorite word?
Happiness.
That doesn't surprise me at all. That sounds right on point. And these questions come in pairs for the most part. So question 2 is, what is your least favorite word?
I think my least favorite word. Do you say bad words in Australia? Do you say bad words? That's what we call it here. I'm not sure if that's like an international
Curse
thing.
words?
Yeah, so curse words. So words that
I'm
I
Australian.
wouldn't say.
Yeah. There's
So,
there's a lot
so
of
curse words.
there's a lot of words, let's say, that I don't say on these interviews that
There's a few
I might say
specifics that I
somewhere else.
really don't like, but any curse words or bad words.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Question 3. In life, what gets you excited? What turns you on?
What gets me excited, I think, seeing people succeed and just do well for themselves. I think there's nothing better than seeing someone who's worked hard for something and then reaping the rewards from that. So I think, and helping people as well. I think you'll always have gratitude from helping people.
And that was what turns you on. So question 4, what turns you off?
Probably a lot of things, but the main one would be just not being kind, hateful and hurtful words.
What sound or noise do you love?
I don't know if this is an actual sound that you could say, but it is a sound. I would say my niece. So the minute I hear her, it just warms my heart so much, and I feel like that's probably my favorite sound in the whole world.
That absolutely counts. I know exactly what you mean. What sound or noise do you hate?
I think. Does anyone like the sound of the alarm? I don't know. Any kind of alarm or any kind of like ambulance or fire engine. I think that just makes anybody uneasy and not a nice feeling. So probably that.
Okay, that makes sense. Question 7. If you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
I think if I could have a superpower, I would love to have the ability to go back in time. As I mentioned about my grandmother passing away, and my other grandmother actually passed away when I was 12, and I feel like they were so influential in my life and were a big part of my life that if I could go back and talk to them, I feel like it would be amazing. But not just going back to talk to them, if I could actually talk to them about current life situations and future life situations and how I'm doing now and find out if they're proud of me and everything, I think that would be the best gift, the best superpower you could have.
Yeah, that's very noble of you. I mean, a lot of people would say they could go forwards in time, get the lotto numbers, and then come back and make themselves super rich. But I think your reasoning is more wholesome. Question 8. What job or occupation other than your own would you most like to attempt?
Nursing, definitely. It has to be nursing because that's what I want to go and do. So if I achieve the goal of becoming a nurse, that will be amazing. So I would definitely say nursing.
And what job would you definitely not like to attempt?
I think this is quite relevant, but maybe something to do with technology and the fact that I would not be very good at it. I also don't think I would like to be a chef. I do enjoy cooking and I think that's great to kind of relieve stress and everything. But if I had to do it as a job, I think it would take the fun out of it.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Okay, final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Oh, that's such a heartwarming question. I hope that he would say, you've lived a life of purpose and we were expecting you.
Sounds good. Well, Eileen, by some miracle, and maybe it's God's intervention, we've actually made it through the interview.
There was definitely times where I didn't think that was going to happen tonight, but we got there eventually.
Well, as you said, everything happens for a reason. So I'm not sure what the reason was for all the troubles that we had before, but I'm sure it will reveal itself to us at some point in the future. But look, thank you so much for your time and best of luck with the rest of the Miss Earth competition.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone who has tuned in. I really appreciate it.
And I'll keep you on the line for just a sec whilst I hang up with the audience. But thanks to everyone, as Eileen said, for tuning in, and we will speak to you next time. Hey, it's Adrian again. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to head up to pageantlaunch.com to join the launch team for our pageant review site. All you have to do is enter your email address. It's completely free. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your friends and follow us on all our socials. Thanks, and see you next time.